January Mongoose Traveler Month. It's now a annual event. We did this last year. We're having our same guest returning with us. Before we do our introductions, I'm going to go over the rules and the explanation of the format to our audience. So this is being held in the Fantasy Grounds Academy's Discord. All mics should be muted, except for myself, Laroon, Matthew, and Mad Beard Man. I will be asking pre-generated questions. I believe I got 4 questions for each of our panelists, and they're kind of related, so they're kind of couplets. At the end of the first pair of questions, we'll pause and see if anybody's got any questions related to the topic we're on. Then we'll move on to the second question, so on and so forth. Once we've gone through all the pre-prepared questions, then it'll be an open Q&A for everybody present. So it'll be no holds bar after that. But it'll be in the time remaining. So time is 2 hours. Once we're through my questions, whatever time remaining is going to be open floor to the public. I think with that, if you have questions and you can't vocalize them or are uncomfortable vocalizing them, if you're with us here in Discord, you could type them in the Symposium text channel. If you're following us on Twitch, you could ask in Twitch. We do have faculty here that are observing both, and we'll make sure that your questions get vocalized for you. And before I guess I introduce Matthew and Colin, Laroon, do you have anything I missed or any opening announcements on behalf of the Fantasy Grounds Academy?
Not really, just welcome everyone. Thanks for showing up. Taking a look at the Twitch stream. It looks pretty good live. I'll be moderating there, and also I'll be checking the text channel for questions.
Great. So with us as our first guest is Matthew Sprange, Mongoose Publishing's Managing Director and Game Designer. Welcome, Matthew.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
Yep, thank you. And next is Colin, a.k.a. Mad Beard Man, our famous Fantasy Grounds community Ruleset developer. Hi, Colin.
Good evening as well, and also thank you for allowing me to come back after whatever I did last year.
It's good. This is actually, I know I said this was an annual, but this is actually now our 3rd symposium at the Fantasy Grounds Academy. We did do one, I believe, early summer of 2021. So this is kind of becoming a thing here at the Academy, which is great. And we do appreciate you guys showing up and participating.
It's always a lot of fun.
Yeah. All right, so I'll get to it so we could maximize our time together. First question is going to be for Matthew. And just like last year, you want to tell us a little bit about Mongoose Publishing, history of the company, anything you want to reveal? Treat us like we're brand new or veterans to Mongoose Publishing.
Okay, well, very briefly, we've been around for about 20 years now. We started with the producing books for the D20 license. We quickly expanded into other licensed properties such as Judge Dredd and Babylon 5. And we took a very long road, which brought us to being the main publishers of Traveller these days, which is why I'm here. Hello.
Great. And real quick, what games you currently publish then?
These days, we got 3 main games that we currently publish for: Traveller, Paranoia, and Sea of Thieves, based on the Microsoft video game.
Right on. Yep. That's an MMO, right? Sea of Thieves?
Sort of, yeah.
Sort of, yeah.
It's really just a bunch of people prattling about on a boat is how I'd describe it.
It kind of sounds like my Traveller sessions.
Yeah.
All right, so gonna flip over to Mad Beard Man. So, Mad Beard Man, tell us a little bit about your tabletop gaming history, and then segue into how long you've been using Fantasy Grounds.
Okay, so I started RPGs back in school, so around about 1985, 86 kind of time, and I've been with them forever since, pretty much, playing everything. Absolutely and utterly everything. And over those, how many years it's been now, 30 odd years, I've enjoyed pretty much every moment. As far as Fantasy Grounds goes, I've just been looking actually at all the products and bits and bobs. I've actually now been using Fantasy Grounds for this would be year number 7, and I know I was playing on it probably a year or 2 before I started developing products for it. So coming up to nearly a decade, I would say, and still using it because it still beats most of the others hands down.
Yeah, definitely has pros and cons, which we like to point out here at the Academy. We're obviously here for the pros. And then the next question, and we're still kind of on the same topic a little bit, but I'm going to go to Matthew, and then we'll pause and see if anybody's got questions. So, Matthew, just tell us a bit about your gaming history personally. What games did you grow up playing? And then kind of what kind of professional route made you become a game developer, so to speak?
Oh, Lord. Oh, this is going to go back a few more years than I might care to remember. I mean, it started in primary school with the Fighting Fantasy and Lone Wolf solo game books. And a teaching assistant saw me reading those one day and said to me and my mates, hey, why don't you try this game called Tunnels and Trolls? That was my very first experience with RPGs. From there, rapidly went on to D&D, Games Workshop's Judge Dredd, and then Traveller. I kind of haven't looked back since. As well as RPGs, got into miniatures gaming quite heavily, both fantasy, sci-fi, and a little of the historicals as well. Tried most things down the line, although it's one of those things that somebody says, have you ever played such and such very well-known game? And I realize I haven't. But no, professionally, the first things I got published were freelancing for Games Workshop, primarily Warhammer 40,000 and Battlefleet Gothic. If anyone's into that and are enjoying Flesh Terrors or Death Company Dreadnoughts, you're welcome. And from there, I mean, this was in the late 1990s, so about the time I stopped freelancing for Games Workshop was pretty much when I helped start Mongoose way back when, which was basically me turning to a very long-term friend and saying, hey, do you want to start a games company? We more or less just started off in the pub. That's the story of Mongoose.
Great. And right now we got some questions coming through on Twitch, but this is a good opportunity to pause and check. Anybody have any questions here on Discord that, kind of related to Matt's and Collins' background?
I got one comment that says it starts in a pub or starts in a tavern.
Sorry, what was that?
The starts in a pub or starts in a tavern is usually how everything starts, right?
True.
Yes.
Just walking through, so got nothing coming through text-wise. So we'll go on to the next topic. All right, so we're going to go with Matt. So Mongoose has been releasing Traveller 2e products at a very steady pace throughout the last couple of years. You got anything exciting in the pipeline, just about to be released, or maybe something you guys have just started talking about that you want to start working on?
Oh, absolutely tons. The thing about Traveller, the thing about Mongoose is we produce the games that we want to play ourselves, and we're just very fortunate there's enough people out there who agree that they're good games that we can do it properly. So yeah, as far as Traveller is concerned, we've always got exciting stuff out because we're always excited for Traveller. So I can tell you next week, for example, we've got the Spinwood Extents book coming out on PDF and pre-order, which covers the Vanguard Reaches and the Beyond sectors, basically the sectors left of the Trojan Reach and Spinwood Marches. It's the first time I think anyone's gone into them in the kind of depth that we've we've gone into, and of course it's very much outside the sphere of the Third Imperium and the other big empires. So it's giving us a chance to really stretch our creative muscles. So that'll be the next big setting area for Charted Space. Following very soon from that, we've got the print copies of the whole Mercenary series popping up. We've got Highguard Update 2022. We've got all sorts of bits and pieces for 2300 coming out. Primarily, Ships of the Frontier will be the next one you see. I'm sorry, I'm reading this out. I've got the pint size release schedule in front of me. So by all means, if I call something out and people want to know more about it, then by all means they should shout out. After Ships of the Frontier, we got what I think is going to be a big and popular release, the Robot Handbook, kind of doing for robots what we've already done for vehicles, but there are just so many different options in this book. It's going to be difficult getting across. If you can think of any robot or android or cyborg or artificial intelligence that you've ever seen in any science fiction, it's probably going to be possible with this book. Gear went into an amazing amount of detail into it. Beyond that, we got more Aliens of Charted Space books coming out. Martin has just finished Order of Prometheus, which is a mini campaign based in Solomani space. Chris Griffin's about to start his big epic Singularity campaign. So yeah, we've got a lot of supplements, a lot of rules, and a lot of campaign material coming out. Hopefully enough to keep everyone excited about Traveller for at least another year.
Yeah, very exciting stuff. I'll hold off on my questions, see if anybody's got anything on what stuff's coming out.
Someone's asked in the chat, Frost Plus One, he's asked. He said one of the first adventures he played was for Traveller. It was a Traveller adventure, and Mongoose they made a version of that, and it's called Aramis, the Traveller Adventure. Will that ever be released?
Yeah. Redone for the current edition, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's something I would very much like to do, because obviously it's very much a classic bit of Traveller. It was the first proper Traveller adventure. It would be nice to keep it out and current. The only argument against that is we want to do new stuff rather than just constantly churning out, rehashing old stuff. So consider it on the list of things to do, but we want to do a whole bunch of new material first. How's that?
Got a couple more questions coming in. Kent, can we get you to mute, please? Thank you.
And then kind of to follow up on Frost, the end of his question too about stuff coming to Fantasy Grounds. The next question is going to be for Colin, and we'll ask him how stuff, what the pipeline order is, and how that's maybe determined.
I wouldn't mind doing some first E stuff, but there's plenty of 2E stuff first.
Yeah.
I get it.
See some questions getting typed, so we're going to kind of hold in the pattern right here before we go over to Colin.
Okay.
Yeah, just for those that are not familiar with Fantasy Grounds, maybe we should have explained this at the beginning. So Colin Mad Beard Man is our Ruleset community developer. I guess is the right term for you. Is that right? Fantasy Grounds community developer?
It's close enough.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Right. You're not only just responsible for coding the rule set, but then doing the conversions. And I might put some words in your mouth, but is it you determine based on not just need for what you think the players need, but also what you want to play, right? As far as maybe adventures when they get converted.
Yeah, that's probably very accurate. The way the products are developed, or the order they're developed in, Matthew has he's not imposed any deadline or set order. There's some things that I ask first of all because they're dependent upon something else, like the Lost Duke adventure is really dependent upon Solomani Front being released. But pretty much I convert, or I get converted, because Lee Paxton is helping these days, the stuff that I want to play, because it's a cheap way of getting it tested. You know yourself, if you run it, you find all those little bits, you think, there should really be a link here, shouldn't there, to that particular item, or this text would be better if it was broken down into 2 sections rather than one big long paragraph. And so that's how I do it. But I have recently started to build lists, I suppose, of things that I want to do, because the core rulebook 2022 update has changed the look and feel of the material. So that means what I want to do is try and draw a line with the older or the current material, how it looks, with certain headers or in a certain way and things like that, and then switch over en masse to the next version, or should I say the updated, the 2.5 version, because of course that's got Secret of the Ancients, or Secrets of the Ancients, and I'd love to run that again. But of course, I sometimes, you may have seen me, I ask on Twitch, not Twitch, Twitter,
yeah.
or in the forums what people would like to see next, and go from there.
Right, you're touching on some stuff that we're maybe going to get to a little bit later about maybe your show and tell, and I see some questions coming in, like how's 2300 going? Now I'm going to hold that one. So CJ Dunn, we're going to probably do a show and tell near the end of this to show that off. I guess you said something. Maybe this might be. Maybe I'll just ask it now, because it's kind of come up kind of twice now. Is the Core 2022 updates? We have the new core manual. We're talking about the High Guard. Maybe this might be a good time just to rip that Band-Aid off and talk about when and if we're going to get that on Fantasy Grounds.
The short answer to that is as soon as I can.
Okay, it will be it's a new product. It's not an update to, if we currently own the core manual, it's going to be a new.
Yeah, it will be a new product, but it's going to utilize the same rule set. It's going to allow you to use everything that you've already got, and vice versa. If you don't buy it, you can still use the Secrets of the Ancients, the Third Imperium, books like that. All it will come with is with a new theme that matches the new book style.
Mm-hmm.
But the two are indistinguishable. So you can either keep with one, or you can buy the new one. The choice is yours.
Right, and they're going to be written on the same code that currently exists, so it won't matter.
No,
is that correct?
Yeah. The thing is that it takes just as long to do that book as it would any other rule book. So if you go to a shop and buy it, you're still going to have to pay your $50 or whatever it costs. But do you need it to play? The answer is no. So I could spend all that time doing it and nobody wants to buy it, but that's their choice. But going forward, players arriving now picking it up would hopefully pick up that rather than the 4-year-old version. I don't know what Matt thinks about that.
No, it's pretty much the same attitude we took with the printed release. We were at pains to let people know it's not a new edition. It's not like a D20 3.5. It really is just a midlife or maybe quarter life refresh. So the main point behind it was we had a reprint coming up. So we thought we'd take the opportunity to elevate the graphics and art of the core rulebook to the same levels we were already doing supplements with. While we were at it, we tweaked a few things here and there, but nothing changes the way rules go in and out of the various subsystems, so you can still use your original core rulebook on everything that we're going to be doing for this edition for Traveller for years to come. In the same way that Update 2022 you can use with all the previous books of this edition. It really is optional. We think the Update 2022 is the best Traveller that's been done yet, and we hope people will join us, but it's not compulsory by any means.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we got a few questions coming up for you guys about product releases and such. The Babylon 5 stuff, is there any plans to do any more of those?
Good question. There's two sides to that. I mean, firstly, we would have to approach Warner Brothers and they would have to say yes.
Okay.
I don't think that is either of those things are beyond the realms of possibility. The only question mark I would have is we've already been around that carousel once. Do we want to? I mean, it was a very nice carousel. We did enjoy it. Do we want to go around that again, or do we want to do something new? If we were to go back, it would perhaps obviously now certainly use the Traveller system. We would bend the Traveller rules a little bit more than we did in the past, so it flows better. But whereas in our old D20 B5, we had a tendency to concentrate on source material more than anything else, and maybe rule secondary. I think if we were to do it again, we'd concentrate on the stories more than anything. So the kind of epic campaigns we've been doing for Traveller for Charted Space, I think that's what we would lead with Babylon 5. But I hasten to add, I have given this some thought, but this is all speculation.
Okay. Is there any fleet level space combat game to use with the 5th Frontier Wars?
That's kind of like a multi-tiered question. I mean, the quick answer is we're revising fleet combat to be easier to use in Highguard Update 2022. That's the simple question. I've always had it in my head that if we were going to do fleet combat in inverted commas properly, it would probably have to be done as a miniatures game. And we've got some ideas, we've got some possibilities for things like that. We are talking to people about Traveller miniatures and Traveller miniatures games, but nothing has been fully agreed on yet. I mean, at this rate, maybe it'll end up being a video game, and instead of miniatures, you play it all out on the screen. I don't know at the moment.
Okay. So questions that I can answer that maybe you guys, if you want to fill in, there's been some asking, like they're preparing for their first Traveller campaigns, any pointers or tips for the game. So I put in basically a playlist that Greg and I and all of us had put together for for previous events. Also, if you scroll back into this particular symposium text, there are a lot of links there that are basically links to maps and products and all sorts of things. So if you didn't make the other symposiums, you can always come back to the symposium text and scroll back, and you'll see a ton of resources that would help you with the actual game itself. And I just posted the link for the playlist for newer players. And the other thing was, you just stated about the actual changes to these revisions in the rules. Are they more cosmetic? Are they text fixes? Are they rule changes? It sounded to me like I heard you say they're more revisions than rule changes.
They are. It's tiny little things that really won't affect the gaming system gaming experience drastically, to the extent that you could have both the original core rulebook and update 2022 on the same gaming table at the same time, and 99.9% of the time you're not going to get any clashes, and any clashes you do get will be easily resolved. For example, it's tiny things like people always commented in the past that the Navy career had no way to pick up the medic skills, so you couldn't get Navy doctors easily. So we've managed to put the medic skill in on the vehicle critical hit table. It now takes into account watercraft and the fact that they can be holed and start sinking. It's tiny things like that as I say, it's not. It just makes the gaming experience a little bit smoother. It makes a little bit more sense, but it doesn't change the actual rules. You're still getting more or less the same numbers in and out.
Right, and maybe if I could follow up with that for Colin, I mean, going through it now, you've had it for a few months. Can you think of anything mechanically that you would have to change to your code that wasn't already there that you now need to do to go in line with the core 2022, or is it? To me, it feels like it's all still there. There's
not an awful lot to change. The mechanics of the automation are still the same.
Yeah.
It's still pick your stat, skill, roll some dice, hit a target number kind of thing. Combat's still the same. It's just rolling up characters and things like that. There are a few minor changes, nothing that require any coding changes to be made.
Right. Yeah, I can think of examples. Sorry, where something would have granted a boon now gives you a +2, but that automation wasn't there. That was still old-fashioned dice rolling kind of paper. So,
yeah, that's correct. There's a lot of parts of Traveller which it's very hard to automate, as it's just text. Do this and this happens, or change this and that happens. Nothing's jumped out on me and told me they're going to change it, but I won't really find out until I start the hard work on it. And then it's quite simple within Fantasy Grounds to say, if you're running this rule set, use this. If you're running this slightly updated rule set, do this. So I'm not overly concerned.
all right. Liver, any questions that while we're still on this topic that we're missing?
Yeah,
I would
go ahead.
Well, I would just say I'd +1 Babylon 5. I think with the new reboot to the TV series coming, the nostalgia to it. Oh yes, please.
So Matt,
Go
ahead.
Yeah, I mean, we do have. I've got a feeling we're going to be talking about this later. We do have some new things of our own coming out this year and next, but we are kind of sort of ish in the market for a new exterior license, and we have drawn up a big long list, and we have started talking to consumer products departments. It's all a long way off at the moment. If such a list was to exist, then Babylon 5 would probably be on it, and a phone call would probably be made to Warner Brothers about that and other properties. I'm just speculating.
Yeah, and I should, because you pointed out for the audience, so everybody knows the last question that we have pre-generated is what we have on the release, upcoming releases that they'd like to share, whether it's Traveller or otherwise. So it'll be a topic of this symposium coming up. So if we're dancing around it, it's because we've got a prepared section for it.
So at the end of the show, can we talk about things outside of Fantasy Grounds? Like we have a question about Traveller miniatures potentially.
Certainly, yeah.
3D printing, that sort of thing.
Yep, yeah, we definitely open that up. But when we get to the open Q&A, anything is going to go on that. Almost anything. I should say almost.
I had a question about the journals. Now, is that from the organized play? That handled.
You want to explain the JTAS, Matthew? And I could try, but it's your baby.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, we finished a Kickstarter for the second set of volumes for the Journal of the Traveller's Aid Society late last year. Basically, these are small pint-sized books that are packed full of articles for Traveller. Almost all of them set within the Chartered Space universe, rather than generic type rules. Basically, they're kind of like a clearing station for us. We come up with a cool idea for Chartered Space, and this could be like an alien race or the politics of one empire or another, or a new type of equipment. Anything that doesn't really fit into any existing projects. JTAS is very useful for us to be able to get those ideas out. I mean, articles can be anything from 1 page to a dozen or more. They can be short adventures, patrons, background articles. So seriously, it could be, if it fits within a dozen or pages or so. If it's in Chartered Space, it can find its way into JTAS. So we kind of look at them as kind of like a treasure trove for referees. If you're looking for some random inspiration, you can just leaf your way through one of the JTAS volumes. Hopefully something will pop out that you can use. From our point of view, it's also a good way for us to be able to almost dry run some ideas. I mean, if you think about the Traveller Companion, that's got a whole bunch of we say they're optional rules, but it's more of a toolkit that people can pull out and different bits and pieces and use them in their campaigns or not, depending on what they're looking for. But if something in the Traveller Companion really does strike the right note, you might find it's incorporated in one of the core rule books further down the line. JTAS is kind of the same, but not for rules, but for source material within Chartered Space. So, I mean, it's got some bits in there that may make you raise your eyebrows, like I don't know, quad turrets or some such. And those kind of things we just kind of float. If they're very popular, then we'll incorporate them more wholesale into the Chartered Space. If they're not so popular, then they could be marginalized, because Chartered Space is a very, very big place, and in its corners you can find almost anything. So yeah, they're kind of like mix and match products. We've done 6 volumes already. We're working on volumes 7 to 12 right now, and you should see them popping up around April, May-ish, I think.
Nice. So they're a compilation of different rules and lore and ideas in those volumes. Is that what you're saying?
Basically, yes.
Okay.
As I say, some things are longer than others. You'll get complete usable alien races in there, fully playable for travelers. You'll get complete short adventures in there. You also get patrons and adventure seeds. So we try and keep it very, very varied in each volume.
That's good. That's good content.
If I could jump in on that too, Matthew, you also do open calls on the Mongoose Publishing forums for, I guess, lack of a better term, just kind of almost like fan fiction. You accept that and publish it. Is that correct?
We do. I should point out that I think I'm right in saying that 2 of our core Traveller writers, Chris Griffin and Gear, both started off doing JTAS articles. We were sufficiently impressed that we said, hey, do you want to try doing a 32-page adventure?
Mm.
And they're both doing big hardback books now. So if you fancy yourself as a Traveller writer, by all means, put together a JTAS article or 2. We will take a look at it.
Nice. Very helpful. Anything else, folks, before we go on to the next topic?
Going through, I'll ask Chris's question maybe more towards the end. We have a video game question, Matt, but we'll let you stew on that one.
No worries.
And then Colin, you're going to be getting a wizard question, but we'll get to that when we got what you're working on, character wizard. I don't think I'm missing anything. All right, so we're going to go on to the next one. So this one is for Mad Beard Man, and this is kind of geared towards maybe those aspiring rule set makers for Fantasy Grounds, or maybe those that want an understanding of what the process is. I'm going to say this: not all rules that Smiteworks, the publisher of Fantasy Grounds, are done in house. Some rules like 5e, the Paizo's, those are done by Smiteworks, but Mad Beard Man, he works on the Traveler rule set amongst others for Fantasy Grounds. So Colin, how did you find yourself developing rule sets and converting for Fantasy Grounds? What was the impetus on that? And then just tell us more about the whole experience, just for everybody, so we get a good hear it from the source.
Okay. I just mentioned, but though Paizo is not built internally.
Oh, it's not? Okay.
Trenlo builds Pathfinder.
Gotcha.
Yeah. The short answer to that was we were playing on Roll20. Roll20 kept going wrong, or being in England, they would do their various updates, maintenance on their servers on a Sunday evening, our playtime. So our GM at the time found Fantasy Grounds, and because I'm a techie and I've been a techie my entire life, I had to have a look at it when I installed it and see how it worked. And I reversed engineered it, had a look inside, was quite intrigued, and then discovered that there was a community building products for it, building extensions and small adventures and things. And so, because I was stuck in the house an awful lot because I've got kids, I just turned my attention to figuring out how to actually write something. And the first thing that I actually started to develop was Mongoose's first edition Traveller, simply because at the time there was a version in the community, but it wasn't working very well. It was a little bit broken, and I don't know about how other people work, but you sometimes set yourself a task to do something better than somebody else. And so I picked up my keyboard and my mouse as such, and then started to develop it. I will say that the community inside, even 7 or 8 years ago when I started, was very good. They were always keen to help people. And you got Moon Wizard from Smiteworks who'll always answer an email if you've got a question regarding how the code behind certain things work. And they're in. I picked it up and I got the bug big time. I then started to build first edition. I fired off an email to Matt, who at that time, and I said, "Excuse me, do you mind if I do this?" Because generally, being a software guy, I didn't like the idea of people stealing my code when I was writing applications for other people. And subsequently, I sought approval for this, and Matt was very willing at the time. And here we are now, 7 years on, I think, or 6 years on from when 1E dropped.
That's cool. That's a really cool story. Hopefully that inspires some of you to move into that development space.
Yeah, it's quite a steep learning curve, but if you stick to it, you'll get the rewards. And there's some stuff that I'm going to show soon that I've managed to do now that has actually gone back to Smiteworks and shown them how they can do some stuff. I've got a lot of experience outside of video type games. I've worked everywhere and done everything. And sometimes you need that extra pair of eyes on something with a new look as to how things can work. And I would say that what I've done this year is I've started to speak to community developers. Like there's a chap who's been doing the Witcher rule set, and I've lent him some of my time, and I've fixed up some of the problems that he was having with his rule set. So now I'm feeding back into that and teaching him then how some of the various windows work and how you drag items into an inventory window, and then the combat window then gets the weapon appear and things like that. So if you've got any idea of coding, it's all written in XML and Lua scripting. If you don't know that, if you know some JavaScript, it's not that far removed from it. And even better now, internally inside Fantasy Grounds with the core RPG updates in December, you can now start to build your own material and export it, which then works hand in hand with the Forge that Smiteworks have got.
Yeah, and this.
Any questions?
Yeah, I mean, just to plug something, we just did a symposium last week that is up on our YouTube about how you get stuff up on the Forge. I think Chris is here with us. He was one of our crafters.
Yep. Yeah, that's another good way to show off what you can do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. And what will be happening is when I do the core 2022 theme, that will go into the Forge as well. So those people that DM me and ask me, oh, how can I tweak the theme to make this or to do this? You'll get the actual code that builds that theme available to you so you can do it yourself. And you'll learn. The best way to learn is to pick up somebody else's work, figure out how it's built, tweak it, and see the effects.
Yeah. So we had a comment about getting Traveler Map integrated into Fantasy Grounds. I think we went around with this last year, or last year we did it.
We
So
did,
have
yeah.
security issues and those sort of things, but you can link it. I mean, you can create a hyperlink into your text and go straight to it. But as far as integrating that into the interface, I don't see that happening for a while. I mean, that doesn't sound like something that's immediate, anyways.
No, the Traveler Map, I suppose, because it's all web cloud based. We could start to look at that, but there's authentication and then there's trust, and I'm not sure that Fantasy Grounds would allow then a website to then have access internally into its insides. I'm not sure. Now that Fantasy Grounds Unity is out, it's the main flagship. They're starting to branch out from Classic. It's probably now's the right time to start asking internally if this kind of thing is possible. But yeah. I'd be hesitant myself because of just authentication and security.
Now you do bring up something that's interesting too. For our non-Fantasy Grounds participants, there are two versions of Fantasy Grounds. One's now a legacy, which we refer to Fantasy Grounds Classic. It's no longer getting support unless it's an emergency bug fix or something. But that was something that you, Colin, had to keep in mind. You had to develop towards two different versions, the Unity and the Classic. Now you get to just focus on Unity.
Correct. Yeah, which the Unity then allows for, I'll touch wood when I say this, allows for measuring distances between characters on a map or tokens on a map. Therefore allows or should allow grenades and other area of effect weapons to auto-target.
Cool.
Yeah, now I got an idea that could possibly work, but that's so far down the list. I'll worry about that next year.
I hear you.
So we have any questions coming in the room about developer stuff, maybe?
No, nothing on the Twitch channels. I don't see anything in our Discord.
All right, so yeah, we're almost about 50 minutes into the 2 hours, and I'm down to one question apiece, and then we'll go over to an open Q&A for everybody. So coming back to Matthew, so any projects outside of Traveler you would like to share, or cycle back maybe some more stuff you thought on? This is now open floor for you.
Oh yeah, right. Well, this year we've basically got 3 main new projects coming out. The first one that's absolutely filling our office at the moment is, you'll be seeing it March, April-ish, is a brand new game and a brand new setting called Shield Maidens. It's a cyberpunk Viking cross. It's very weird and wonderful. Players will be taking the roles of the titular Shield Maidens in service to Freya, fighting against the Fenrir Empire and all the other nastiness that can be found within the 9 realms. I must admit, I've been kind of keeping a very light hand on this project. It's being carried by other people in the office, but we're going to start previewing some artwork later this month. And the stuff that's coming, it looks absolutely fantastic. I mean, if anyone thinks we've been doing a fairly good job bumping up the art in Traveller, this is taking things to a new level. As I say, you'll be seeing that one around March, April-ish, very-ish time. That one's coming out when we know it's ready, rather than to any set deadline. Little later in the year, we've got probably likely towards the end of summer, we've got the new edition of Paranoia, the Perfect Edition. We're going back to hardback format on this one. There's going to be no cards this time round, although if you've got the cards from the current edition, you will still be able to use them. It'll still remain compatible with all your cards, books, and interactive Games Master's screen. Coming out as initially 2 hardbacks, one the core book, and then we're doing a Paranoia companion. It's basically all the stuff that we couldn't fit into the core book. So that's going to be where, for example, rules for making bot characters will be sitting. And then finally, kind of bring it back to Traveller, actually, towards the end of the year. Something I'm very excited for is a new game called Pioneer. It's using the core Traveller rules, although it's going to be using its own subset of those. Basically, it's about space travel in 20, 30, 40 years' time. So very much using current space projects for inspiration. The whole idea of the game is that as players, you're going to be the first people setting up a moon base, the first people to walk on Mars, the first people to try and mine an asteroid, for example. Very much using The Martian, Gravity, in a sense, a film like Interstellar or Sunshine, as our touchstones for the general feel of things. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that one. There's no combat chapter in the game. With the idea is your biggest threat is by far the environments you're in, and it's going to be more about problem solving rather than hitting things. Although you will be able to hit things, that we just don't have a dedicated combat section. So yeah, that's how it's looking for us this year outside Traveller. We got Shield Maidens, Paranoia Perfect Edition, and Pioneer.
Is Pioneer going to be based on hard science, or is it?
Oh, very much so.
Yeah.
Very, very hard science.
Yeah. I do have a question now that maybe is a good time to bring up from earlier. Then if you could help Larun go through anything that's coming in. There was talk on one of our previous symposiums about a possible video game for Traveller coming up. Has that gotten any momentum?
It has. It's been in development for 2 years now. There's actually 2 video games planned. The first one is going to be called Traveller Vanguard. It's set during the 5th Frontier War, based around boarding actions of both Imperial and Zodani warships. If you think of it as, let's say, Traveller meets XCOM, so you're going to have 3D isometric gameplay. You're going to be able to build up your squads, individual squad members. You're going to have the variants of equipment and so forth. We're building all sorts of things to make the Imperials and Zodani play very, very differently. As I say, it's set during the 5th Frontier War. We're going to be using the bits and pieces, bits of game engine developed for that, for a proper and again in inverted commas, proper RPG for Traveller, basically using the engine in Vanguard for the combat sections, or the on-foot combat sections, where you'll have the proper party free trader Traveller experience on your screen. At the moment, Vanguard is at the building the 3D assets stage, so every 2 or 3 weeks we get a new bunch of visuals from the developers for us to okay or suggest tweaks. So we did, in our last stage of the Mongoose, showcase some of the character models, the Imperial Marines and some of the Zodani officers that they've done for us so far. But they've been doing all sorts of things, right from the big heavy cruiser, the exteriors of the big heavy cruisers, down to the new boarding shuttles both sides use. And they've been going into details for trying to figure out what you're going to find in the cargo bays of an Imperial warship. So as well as things like shipping containers, they've got the gantries and personal vehicles and load lifters. But they've also taken those ideas and started thinking, well, that's fine, but how are these things going to look on the in a Zodani ship? So you're going to be getting the two completely different environments there. I imagine it's probably going to be, video games being what they are, towards the bottom end of next year-ish, very-ish, when you start you'll start being able to play Traveller Vanguard. But the guys we got doing it, they call themselves Evil Twin Artworks. They've done 3 Victory at Sea games for us, based on our World War II naval miniatures game. They're good games. These guys know what they're doing. So it's still going to be a little while, but I think you're going to like it when it gets here.
It's
awesome.
Exciting.
Yeah. Going through the chat. Anything on this topic, Laroon?
Just a comment about taking inspiration from Lost in Space for the reboot for Pioneer.
Everyone in the office tells me I need to watch that, and I just can't get into it.
I did want to mention Fantasy Grounds does have a couple things on sale for Traveller. I don't know if you guys already have it, or if you if you don't mind. Basically, there's 2 adventures that are priced like $10 off. They're pretty discounted. Like, it's not bad. I put a link in the chat, so if you want some adventures for Fantasy Grounds, they're on sale this week. So I just wanted to mention that. It was also published in, I think, the paper, I think. But
I want to see, even I think Behind the Claw might be on sale right now, that's huge.
Yeah. So that's just if you guys want to round out your collection.
Yep. All right. I think are you ready, Colin? We're going to probably do the screen share. If I don't see any more questions coming in for Matt, and then again, we're gonna have plenty of time for an open Q&A afterwards.
Okay,
But,
I have a question though for Matt on Shield
sure.
Maidens.
Yeah.
What rule system is it using? What dice?
It's right. To answer this quickly, basically it's D6 based, but all the Shield Maidens build what's called a Guardian Shield, which, if you think about something that goes on their wrists, and it creates a big hard light shield that you can put runes into, and you can do lots of funky things with it. But in terms of gameplay, whenever you use your Guardian Shield, you can swap one of the D6s you're rolling for a D8. So basically D6 based, but there's a D8 thrown in for good measure.
Brilliant. And as my eldest is called Freya, and she is a Viking, and she is a goddess, does she get a mention in the book anywhere?
I can't see why not.
Excellent. Right. So over to me. So I'll recap. So 2021 was quite a challenging year, I think, for a lot of people for a lot of different reasons. And I think over the year, I think we've done reasonably well on extending the rule set and converting more of the books and bringing more of the content towards Fantasy Grounds. I will shout out now to Harold. Harold has had some health issues as well this year, and he's been slowly testing a few bits and pieces. And of course, we've got Lee Paxton, who himself has had some health issues in this year, but he's back on track. And so he tells me that Sword Worlds and Skandersvik will be coming over my way very soon to get reviewed, get tweaks and updates done to, and then over to Smiteworks to get pushed through the various channels to be released. Now, I'll start to share my screen.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to hit watch stream. I'll give everybody a few seconds to catch up before you start going, Colin. If you're with us in Discord, in order to watch the stream, if you're not already, if you hover over Mad Beard Man's name, you should be able to hit join stream. And
hopefully you can see Fantasy Grounds with just Traveller in it.
Yep,
yeah,
I can see it on the stream too. It looks good.
Yeah, and it looks good on Twitch. Yeah, Twitch is Traveller and Traveller.
Cool.
Which is good.
Right. Well, this is my development desktop for Traveller. On the right-hand side, you can see there we've got the new sidebar buttons that have been released in the core RPG update in December. A couple of these have been modified. Cass over at Mongoose, she's a bit of a whiz when it comes to graphics, and what takes me 6 hours takes her, I would imagine, 5 or 6 minutes to send back. So we've got some bespoke icons on the right-hand side at the moment for PC spacecraft, task chains and vehicles and things. The trade goods one isn't working for some reason, but that's the way of demos, isn't it? Something always goes wrong. Anyway, so this is my development desktop at the moment. So those of you who can see the screen clearly will notice that Deep Night Revelation is at the top. The core box set has been completed. It is all done. We've got all the various reference manuals, so on and so forth, all the lovely artwork, even though we've got Peter Dinklage at the top, I think, of one of these particular survivors. This is excellent. I think it's one of the best products that Mongoose have released in a long time. It's got so much scope that I'm really looking forward to running this myself. But aside from the core rulebook, there are another 6 expansions that were released pretty much at the same time, because this was done through a Kickstarter. Those expansions are being done very slowly, but they will be released over time, whereas the core rule set, well, core box set should hopefully see some light on the Fantasy Grounds web store and Steam soon.
That's great.
Yeah. All right. So JTAS, talking about JTAS earlier, as JTAS Kickstarter, so summer of last year, that's kind of put a fire up our backsides over here, and we currently have recently released JTAS number 3. Number 4 is well underway, and that will be getting over to James by the end of this month. Skipping over, I mentioned before the Lost Duke. The Lost Duke has been completed as well, but we've held that back because I spoke to Matt and he asked that we get Suleimani Front out before that's released. So I've spoken to James as well, and the two should be released at the same time. So quickly moving on. So another book coming very, very soon. All I have to do to get this out the door is do the line of sight on the various maps inside. We've got the Shadows of Sindar. Now, this I think is the best book from the Pirates of Dranak series. I think the 3 adventures in this are just excellent. And I really enjoyed running 2 of these for my group. So you get, with this particular product, because it's an adventure book, so you get the reference manual that you expect, all the various maps, all the graphics in place, various tables, but you also then get everything in story format as well. The story format then allows you to access the individual parts, and then because it's the story, of course, you can then do your own changes to it. I don't like this, do this instead, and so on. So you've still got the core book to your left, but now you can edit the various adventures yourself, tweak them, and do whatever you want with them. All of the various adventure books coming out in 2022, and we will be backdating this, will come in both formats. If there's an adventure in it, you'll get the adventure as stories, but you'll still get the adventure as text, as the book was printed, but of course in digital form, because who doesn't want to see some of this artwork? It's fabulous, I think. All right, moving on. There is more to show. So very recently, we've released the Companion, the Traveller Companion. That sat inside Smiteworks for far too long due to various communication problems and manual ways of working that Smiteworks have. This got delayed until later on in the year. Now, because this is a core rule book, as Matt mentioned, there are lots and lots of little bits, little ideas like combat, slight changes to things like ammunition expenditure. Rather than following ammunition, run some rules that actually mean after you've done something, there's a chance that the ammunition will run out. And if your dice rolls are as bad as mine, every single shot will empty a magazine case of 100. Oh, got an error with the picture there. Lots of different ideas for the initiative. So the rule set itself will start, its focus this year is to start to allow some of these alternatives to become alternatives within the rule set. So within options, where we already have some things that we can change, such as the characteristics that are from the companion, turn them on and off. Some of these rule changes will also become optionable, so you'll be able to run them or not. It's completely up to you. Moving on, so the Solomana front. This book is complete. It's going through the data at the moment. Again, this book was very text heavy. Text heavy books are quicker to convert, but testing, they take a lot longer, because especially with various Aslan with their various names, they're all italicized in the text, aren't they? And that's a manual process to go and find it and make it italic, and that takes a lot of time. But as you can see here, all the information on the humans that you want, creating the various different versions of the humans. And the ones I like, if I click through a little bit, here we are, ape travelers. Look at that, that's brilliant, that is. So all the rules are in here for that. The race is configured, so it can be dragged onto your character sheet and the statistics are updated. And the dolphins. And then finally we'll show the Weaven. So that's going through, some of our fronts going through checking of the text and adjustments to the data. And that's it. And then lastly, really, when it comes to the Glorious Empire, this needs somebody to go through now and just check that the text has all been converted. Lots of glorious artwork again. Just the art has just got better and better and better with the books. Obviously, the budget's gone up, I would have said. And I enjoyed that one. This brings or draws a line under the Aslan, I would hope, because I am really fed up with trying to find the italicized names of the clans and the Aslan themselves. Rule set then, so plenty of content coming. I'd expect to see most of this by springtime. You Americans call springtime, don't you?
We do.
Yeah, it's around about March, April time.
Yeah.
Cool. Right. So one thing I've been working on very recently is not trade goods. It's task chains. Those of you who followed the rule set would have noticed we released in the middle of the year task chains as an extension. Well, that was to test to see if task chains themselves was a viable concept and that people would use it. And I'm pleased to say that I think it's been quite successful. So what I've done is I've now dragged the code out of the extension and put it into the rule set, but the extension only allowed you to use what you would class as the GM version, which then mimicked the client version. So you had to do everything within this task chains window. Now, as part of the rule set, there is the reference data. So actually, you can now configure your task chains. We'll add another one. Oh, can never type. Another one. Add in some tasks as we want. Pick some skills. Character. Skills. So we'll have art, writing, broker. Let's have persuade, and let's remove that fourth one. So when I click edit now, you notice there's the little up arrows. This allows us to get around the issue that what we've done is we're meant to actually put persuade in before broker. Well, what I can do now, if we change all these to intelligence and that one to education and set these to average, difficult, formidable, you can now move them about. So any task chains that you've thought, second stage should actually be whatever, you can now drag it into whatever position you want. Now, the only work that's left requiring on this is the ability to drag this into the task chains window to allow your players to access it. And one other point then, which I won't show because it's not far enough along the lines, is we're finally getting a character wizard. Now, work has been going on, I would say now for a year, to actually tidy up the various data that you get from the traveler material and try and put it into a computer readable format, a much more acceptable format. For example, you will know that some races will have 2d6 for all their stats. Some might only have 1d6 for one of their stats, or they might have 1d6 plus 2 or 2d6 plus 2. Well, the wizard now will allow all that to take place. Effectively, you'll have a character. There's a button on the character sheet. You'll click that and it will take you through the various steps. Now, Dom at Smiteworks has helped me with some of this, and I'm hoping next month to be able to start to show some screenshots of it working.
That sounds good.
Yeah, it's very complex in a sense to do Traveller as an automated wizard, but it's a lot easier than it is actually for 5e, because 5e has got 730,000 different products that people build, and you need to make sure that every single one of those products works, whereas we're an encapsulated audience here, so we don't have to worry about certain things.
That's good.
Yeah, I hope people understand that there's a lot of blood gone into it, but it should then make the introduction of Traveller to newer players an awful lot easier. But so let's talk about other systems then. So that's Traveller. Traveller this year, 2022, whilst we're going to produce another dozen or so books, the focus will be on finalising the rule set and getting the rule set fixed in some areas, better working in others, and then complete in other areas. So tightening up all the loose screws. Now there are enough players out there, the feedback that's starting to come in is fantastic, and that enables me to make decisions that we're going the right way on certain things.
Real quick, Colin, I don't think we've been clear that this might be a good time. Where do you get that feedback from, specifically from your player base?
Yeah, well, there's 3 places. There's Fantasy Grounds forums.
Yep.
There's your Discord channels as well, your traveller group you've got there. Some ideas come from there. And then actually from this symposium that you did last year, a couple of the players wanted certain things, and these task chains was Dalton Carlton. He wanted these, so he gave me a spec on the forums in the end. We took it, made it better in the sense, made it more universally acceptable, and it's part of the rule set now.
Nice.
So yeah, so I think the moral of that story is that creators feed off from people a lot more than people think. If you've got an idea of a rule, or you've got an idea of a way that something might work better, or you've got an idea that this will make that much easier for me, suggest it somewhere, and it gets added to a list. And then we cherry pick the easiest options to do in an update, and then for one update, we'll take more of the complex things and do that. For example, the next big update will be dealing with some of the companion rules, but also a trade goods system, a very basic system of buying trade goods, sticking them into your ship's holds, arriving at a planet and selling them. So not so much of a wizard, but should start to do away with people who run Excel spreadsheets in the background, start to automate that. And from that simple, that will be an extension. From that simple test, hopefully, we'll get players giving us more ideas, and that will develop and develop. And when it's reached such an idea that we know it works, then it will get baked into the rule set and everybody will get it. So suggest away. Now, this is my test stuff. So I will now show something that I absolutely love. 2300 AD, when GDW released it, in what was it, 1988, so around then. It's obviously based on aliens and the colonial marines and everything else, but it encapsulated my young brain, and I've loved it ever since. This was the reason I hunted down Mongoose originally, because I wanted to release this, not so much the Traveller First Edition. But we are where we are, and now there's a chap on the forums called Gun Bunny Fufu. Top chap. He's been helping doing some of the data, because those of you who followed me know I get bored to death converting data. So he's been nice enough to do that. So what we've done is we've taken a fork of the code, because the beautiful thing about this version is it really is built right on top of Traveller Second Edition, plus a couple of data changes, so traits for weapon, ammunition types, things like that. Nothing major. Some more fields on spacecraft, some more fields on weapons, but on the whole, it's built on top of it. So all the hard work was already done. So what we've been doing is taking the Traveller theme and then changing it and changing button styles so that it fits in with the colours of the 2300 rulebook, but also anybody that knows Traveller will know their way around this instantly. And I think that's important with digital rule sets. You don't want people coming in and having to learn a whole new interface, because it puts them off. So what we've got here, we've got the 3 books. Again, the glorious artwork and the pain in the bum artwork of where the corners are cut off. Because when you get this book, this image direct, of course, from Mongoose, it's got the corners on them. So I have to sit there in Photoshop. But this this book is done. And I might as well just jump down to firearms. So we've got the firearms section. And this is where I was mentioning there are different fields: length, mass, action. But if we now look at this weapon, you'll see that it's not linked properly, so I need to fix that. That now images for things, rather than being a link, are now directly placed inside the record sheet. So if I close this down and I go here and I go to personal armor, so this is the test for the personal armor. You'll see again the image item is linked directly into the record sheet. No longer do you have to go and click a link, find it, and then share it. And I think you'll agree that some of this artwork is just subliminally excellent. And so this is the work that I've passed back to Smiteworks about directly injecting images into things, because I believe that it makes things a whole lot better. Now if we go to weapons, so here's the FC68, a nice common weapon. Ooh. These are all those extra fields I was telling you about. And again, there's the weapon linked directly to the bottom. So at the moment in time, the second book, I believe, is done. We're working on the colonies data at the moment. So for colonies such as Ellis, starting to now pass the UCP to populate the various data in the UCC. Again, using that image work we're starting to inject some of the book art into some of the record sheets to make them look like they're part of the book as well. And I think this has all been converted as well. Yep. So, and then finally the third book. Yeah, we've only done one spacecraft. And there's a spacecraft linked. This work, any work I do here, when I test it and I know it works in Traveller, it gets ported back to Traveller. So the next update in Traveller, all the artwork for the spacecraft will appear on the record sheet automatically.
It's nice.
Combat walkers, good old combat walkers. Yeah, it's been a pleasure to work on this. Trying to lay things out has been a little bit awkward, but I think we're there with it. So it's the data being added now, and I'm hoping that all that will be ready for the end of next month, maybe the beginning of March, and then it goes to Smiteworks for them to do whatever they need to do. But there's one final thing from Mongoose that slowly been working on because of the card system, which is a pain in the backside. The theme is not complete for this, but let's see if people recognize what it is. So there you go, so paranoia. So Cass is helping me with the theme. And what we need to do with this is to get the card system working, and this is ready to come to an FGA desktop near you. I'm hoping this will be released within the next 6 to 8 weeks. And that's it. That's everything I'm working on for Mongoose.
I got a question for you, Colin, on the
Cool.
2300. Will customers that don't have Traveller on Fantasy Grounds, will they have to buy the core rulebook to use 2300?
The answer that's it. They don't have the Traveller rule set, but they want to play 2300. They buy the 2300 box set that comes with the rules. Comes with the rule set, but doesn't come with the rule book for
So
Traveller.
they'll inherit the mechanics. They just won't have the reference for the core.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right, let's stop sharing my screen now.
Sure thing.
There we go. Yes. So Matthew and I spoke about this, or Matt and I, sorry. Because the rules need the data from the Traveller book, the data will be there as necessary to run 2300 successfully. If you've already got Traveller, what you'll find is that you'll have a series of tables and data under 2300 and the same data but expanded under Traveller. So you don't need to buy the Mongoose Traveller second edition rulebook to play it. Even though if you bought the box set in physical, it does state you do need it. We supply that for you.
Awesome. That's awesome.
So it's almost like you're getting an OGL version of Traveller.
Yeah, pretty much. You're getting the content that you wouldn't have on the tabletop.
Nice.
But only that content,
Right.
Nothing else. There's no frills, just the what you need. Yeah, I think that's very good of Mongoose. I know that will please a lot of people.
Matt, do you have any comments on the Fantasy Ground side of things? I mean,
Good point. Yeah, we actually haven't asked you directly what you think of your products being on Fantasy Grounds.
Oh, we're loving it. Yeah, so it's, I mean, Colin's going to dread me saying this, but we'd very much like absolutely everything to be on Fantasy Grounds. I'm going to be having a chat to him about Shield Maidens, The New Paranoia, and Pioneer. And I guess for his next magic trick, he shall fly around the room under his own power.
sounds like he might need some more converters.
Well, there's a few people have stepped up now that the rule set. I think we've sold nearly 1,000 copies of the rule set on Fantasy Grounds. There's now quite a large player base. People do step up, don't they, and offer their time.
Nice.
Yeah, and I think that's just utterly brilliant, because what that's enabled me to do by Lee Paxton stepping up saying, hey, do you want some help with this? That's enabled me this year to focus on the code more than on the text, but take a hand again in cherry picking what I want to work on myself. So Gun Bunny Fufu for 2300, he's going to do the aerospace book as well.
That's nice.
I will review it. I will sign it off, because at the end of the day, we want to make sure it's as pristine as we can get it. But that allows me to give some freedom then to work on some other bits and pieces, because I've made it known that I'd like to do this full time, and so the more work that comes my way as such, that enables me to make that switch to do it, because at the end of the day, I far more enjoy doing this than I do some of the work that I have to do during the week.
We see Mad Beard Man's tweets come through. He's working on this during lunch, and I'm thinking to myself, I hope his lunch is 5 hours long, because I really want this.
Yeah, that's actually during COVID lockdown. That kind of thing helped mentally. You could do that thing where you're switching brain contexts, aren't you? You're physically changing your focus, so then you didn't feel like you were sat in your house 24 hours a day for 8 months. And I'm going to restart it. Actually, I started it this week, doing bits and pieces. I think it's great, because the 1 hour challenge, or the 45-minute challenge that I do, is to convert small adventures and things like that, and I enjoy it. I enjoy it an awful lot.
So I had a question for Mongoose Matt shortly. What have you guys done advertising wise, like marketing, I would say, so you can bring in revenue and that sort of thing?
Yeah, almost nothing. It's very much our weakest point. We are aware of this. To be honest, I mean, back in the old days, when Dragon magazine was a thing, We were taking out like full page adverts in that, and it did give us a real boost. But over the past few years, it's been almost primarily word of mouth we've been relying on, with the idea that if we can produce the best books we can, word of this will magically get out, and people will start taking a look at our games. And to be honest, that is more or less how it works. I mean, in the old days, we had a lot more staff, and we were producing 3 or 4 books every month. About the time of the release of the second edition core rulebook for Traveller, we made the decision, instead of doing 3 or 4 books a month, let's look at doing 1 book every 3 or 4 months, and putting the extra work into that. Now, it was a bit of a gamble, but we knew the books would be better because of it, and it has, as I say, more or less worked out. We do vaguely sort of engage with social media. Facebook is one popular touch point we have for us. We've got our own forums. I mean, we've only 2 months ago we got our Instagram account up and running. It shows how behind the curve we are on that. And our focus this year is going to be YouTube. We're going to be leading with Traveller on it. We've got some ideas put together. We've got some scripts put together for general lore articles. So looking over the Free Trader is going to be one of them. We're going to do a multi-part knockout tournament, if you like, of the core Traveller ships to find out which one is best. It's important to know this. We've got a school of Traveller gaming to walk you through, or walk newcomers through the various core rule subsystems. And late last year, we did our first proper music video for Traveller, and we do have some more bits and pieces along those lines to push as well. So marketing and advertising is by far our weakest point as a company. We're pushing forward on social media, relying on word of mouth. Actual advertising, I can't actually think of any that we've done in the past 12 months.
Okay. Only reason I ask is I put out a video, just a personal one, on TikTok. Actually did pretty well in like less than a day. So I think some of the spaces that are out there, you guys will do pretty well in when you can put attention into it. And as far as, I don't know if you guys have a newsletter, kind of like Smiteworks does. I'm not sure if.
No, we see that's the kind of thing. We have the facility. We absolutely should. We've actually got a new website going online. He said, fingers crossed, by the end of this month. That's got a far better newsletter facility than we have right now. We will be using that. I've also taken it upon myself to employ 2 people in the office who are in their 20s. So when you talk about TikTok, I've got people who understand that.
I do. So we can talk more about this, at a different level. Boffern has a question.
Yeah, not so much a question as a suggestion. It's the same suggestion I make to every publisher who comes on one of these things and I happen to be present. What's your convention presence? And, have you been taking advantage of virtual conventions and the accessibility of them? I mean, it's a lot less effort to throw on your computer, get a game or 2 running at a virtual event, and instead of just relying on other people's word of mouth, letting your own people who are passionate and built the product sit there and display it out for other people.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, for conventions over the past few years, we, for various reasons, we have been taking a step back from that. We had more or less decided to go full bore into it again. We were at Dragonmeet a couple of years ago. Then, of course, the virus hit. So that put the kibosh on things. We're looking at getting back into it this year, depending what the virus is doing. It's kind of looking like it might be going okay-ish, but we're not making any solid plans at the moment. In the US, we've got our friends at Studio 2 Publishing who have their stands, and there's always a Mongoose area on there. They're basically representing us over there. Although again, this year I was looking at transporting the whole office over to the show. Most of them had never been before.
Great.
Virtual conventions is something else we desperately need to look at. Haven't got round to it. Needs a bit of time. Yes, we're way behind. I'm sorry. We'll do better.
No, it's okay. That's part of why every publisher comes on, I will bring this up, or people will make product. You know, you guys have been missing out on an opportunity to sit there and present your product to people who are stuck at home, right? So you have eyes that are locked in on stuff, you know, and this is a chance to get in front of those eyes and show them how good your product is.
Absolutely. I mean, I enjoy working on Traveller every day. Enjoy talking about Traveller every day. It's an opportunity, if nothing else, for me to talk about Traveller to different people. I think that'll be a good hobby.
So we've had a lot of good feedback from just the little bit of social media that we've done leading up to the event and in the future. So if you ever want to know any of that data, or you know, if you want any ideas, open to suggestions or giving suggestions, or however you want to do it. We don't have to talk about your market shortage right now, but it's definitely something I've noticed and I wondered about. You know, if you had any plans for that. It sounds like you do. So thank you for answering.
Oh, you're welcome.
All right, everyone. We got about 25 minutes before we let our guests go. We'll let them go sooner if we don't have any questions, though. So now's your time. Go ahead and get them in Twitch, get them in Discord. If you're comfortable coming off mic, you could vocalize your question here on Discord.
Agent Wiggles has got a question in Discord.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a good one. I could ask a free Agent Wiggles. Has there been consideration about offering PDF copies with FG purchases? That's come up before, Matt. But some people feel they could afford. They'd like to purchase the Fantasy Grounds, which is the full price. They'd still like to have a PDF, so that's something they could print off and read offline, or along those kind of things. Is that something still you guys are thinking about, consideration, or is it you still kind of in a bind on it?
Still kind of in a bind. I mean, in the perfect world, that would be a no-brainer. We'd offer it straight away. The problem comes with, to be blunt about it, mouths to feed. Manuel earlier was talking about wanting to do work on his Fantasy Grounds material full-time. That's something he and I have spoken about. Very much like to pull him towards that. But at the same time, I've also got people in the office who I also want to keep gainfully employed. And once you start chipping away, and it's going to be Mongoose that starts giving things out, starts cutting away at the revenue that way, that raises some problems on that side. So I don't know how to do it yet. As I say, in the perfect world, that would be a no-brainer, but it's problematic at the moment.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
All right, see some typing coming through. Again, you don't have to type it out. We're at the open Q&A. You're welcome to come off mic if you're comfortable with it.
I'll circle back around. The thing about conventions, if you want, after the thing is over, I can talk to you about that. I happen to know a guy or 20.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Matt, you're coming
Yeah,
back.
hi. Sorry, John here from Australia. How you doing?
Good, John. Good. It's yours. We hear you loud and clear.
Quick question for you regarding the product. The Deep Night Revelations core set and then the separate adventures, how do they relate to each other and how do they interact?
Okay. In a nutshell, the Deep Night Revelation box set gives you the prologue and the start of the campaign, plus all the rules you need to run the big ship and all the things you need for deep space exploration. And it gives you the very end of the campaign. Of the 6 small hardbacks that go with it, the first 5 all focus on one specific phase of the journey. They are optional. If the games master wants to brush over or skip over that particular region of space, or they've got their own ideas, the box set will give them enough of a running jump for them to be able to do that. If you want to do I'm going to do it again, inverted commas, official storyline, then those 5 hardbacks each cover one specific point of the journey and links it all together. The 6th book is basically a collection of mini adventures that can be inserted almost anywhere.
Nice. We had a question about the minis. Do you want to ask about that? Someone was asking.
Yeah, Toil, do you want to expand on that?
Oh, it was just an earlier question from Now Z, like at 3:31 p.m.
Okay.
Yep.
Or my time, I should say, earlier.
Yep.
The work with Second Dynasty or some for 3D printing ships or miniature.
Yeah, Miss, I'll ask that one. So yeah, this is for you, Matt. Would you consider working with Second Dynasty to develop Mongoose starship designs for 3D printing? Most especially the Harrier class ship from Power Sojourn Axe.
Yes, that would be awesome. What we would like to see, and I should mention, I've basically got a mandate from Mr. Miller to go forth and sort out Traveller miniatures in sooner rather than later. What we would like to see in that particular suggestion is the ability to put together not a series of 3D image files that people can purchase and arrange a printing of themselves. To be honest, in one way or another, we could have looked at doing that ourselves. We do have a bunch of traveller ships already done in 3D format. That used to be the system we used in the original core rulebook for a lot of the art pieces of them. What we'd need is basically some way to give a final product to someone. So if we could find a way to, for instance, that big 28mm Type S, if we can find a way to manufacture that, put it in a box and send it through the post or have it on a shop shelf, we are going to be 110% all over that. We kind of need it to see it from start to finish, if you see what I mean, rather than just throwing it to people and say sort it out yourselves. One caveat to that is it would be even better if we could have not just standalone miniatures, but some gaming system to base them around. Something obviously you're not going to get a space combat system with a 28mm Type S, although that would be really funky if you've got a big enough gaming area. But maybe something small scale for miniatures, maybe something focused on 28 or 15mm ground combat. These are all things we're talking about at the moment.
You know, that made me think about the old Traveller Snapshot, which was shipboard combat, which was kind of what you're talking about here, essentially.
Absolutely. And it would. It's just finding the proper route for it. I mean, we pulled out of the miniatures production side ourselves. We figured that while we very much enjoyed producing miniatures games, and I'm going to put my neck out a bit and say, while we felt we were quite good at making miniatures games, we didn't have the miniatures production down properly, so we leave that to other people now. We've got, for instance, Warlord Games is doing our Victory at Sea tabletop miniatures game. We also do their SPQR Ancients Warband miniatures game, and that seems to be the right arrangement to us. If we can put together a good miniatures rulebook, we need to find a third party to manufacture the miniatures and get them to a point where they can be sold into a shop or through mail order or however. So yeah, if we can find the complete package.
Have you considered Reaper miniatures, or looked at how they're producing things?
Indeed, we've got. I mean, we're talking to a handful of people at the moment. I can say there's positive conversations going on. Nothing's been signed yet. So, I mean, if anybody's out there listening wants to start their own miniatures games company, we're always looking for proposals.
I just mentioned Reaper because they seem to be doing a pretty good job knocking it out with their Bones Black series, and they've consistently been in production since the '90s. But also, it's not necessarily just exclusively Reaper. I figure you're probably may even consider Ironwind Metals. They're pretty exclusively metal and resin, but they're the ones who took over the old Raupartha line.
Yes, yeah. I say we are big on miniatures in the office. I mean, if anybody ever gets the chance to visit Mongoose HQ, one of the first things you'll see is a massive wall of cabinets full of painted miniatures from various armies from different people in the office. So yeah, we're very positive about Traveller miniatures. They've got to be done properly, and that's not just a comment on the quality of the actual miniatures. It's the whole package, the miniatures, the packaging, the game, the distribution channels. We need to see everything. Traveller's worth doing it properly, not half-assing it, if you see what I mean.
Oh, definitely. That's why those two names came onto mind. Ironwind Metals packaging looks pretty good. It's got some shelf appeal, along with the Reaper and their fairly consistent branding on how they do things.
A lot. I'm trying to think if I ever got together with someone from Reaper. We spoke to Ironwind in the past for various bits and pieces. This is going back about 10 years ago, so yeah, you might be right. It might be worth reawakening some of those contacts.
So we got a question for Matt, or Matt for Matt. Chumbly wants to know if you'd consider releasing art kits for game masters and for for people that maybe an art subscription or a way to allow people to dress up their campaigns to match the Traveller style, because you got a lot of kind of random sources coming, and I can relate to this just from other rule sets, is that would really be nice to have some sort of assets available especially for like Fantasy Grounds and virtual tabletop. So this is your question from Chumbly.
Well, we have it's funny, Colin was talking about that just the other day for Fantasy Grounds, so I suspect you're going to see something for that sooner rather than later. Away from Fantasy Grounds, we do have some templates that are free to download on drive-through for the TAS program. Now you mention it does occur to me we haven't updated those for the new format of Traveller. So yeah, that's something I'll get on and arrange for this year.
Perfect. Chumley, hopefully that answered your question.
I think I'll go a step further with it. I think part of what people with virtual tabletops contend with is, and also to help try and get a better understanding of the issue, would be the disconnection that can happen between maps and tokens. It kind of breaks the immersion that you build there when the art styles clash. You know, you might have like a hyper realistic map and a super cartoony token, and it just kind of feels bad, you know, just trying to be like, okay, yeah, you know, these in this case the Vargar, I believe they are, or the dog boys essentially, you know, having a super cartoony one on one of your maps, or, you know, basically art style matters, right? And consistency between the two.
Understood.
Winding down to our final 10 minutes.
I've got a. This is Colin Dunn. Just want to say hello to both Colin and Matt. I've been working with
Hey,
Matt.
Colin.
I've been working with Matt for years, and I've never met him or spoken with him. But just want to say hello. And
It's very good to hear from you.
Thanks to Colin for all the work he's doing on the 2300 AD conversion. It was very nice to see that.
No worries. Hello.
Hello. So I'm the one who's writing 2300 AD.
Oh, this is Gun Bunny.
Oh.
No. Gun
No,
Bunny is the person helping me.
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is the guy who's producing the book.
Oh, wow. We're great. Welcome.
So yeah, I just wanted to say hello and thank you, and I'm looking forward to actually getting a chance to play it on Fantasy Grounds.
Awesome.
I'm currently working on the Tools for Frontier Living update and rewrite, so that'll probably be coming your way in a bit too.
Awesome.
I'm scanning Twitch. Nothing new recently there.
Nope.
Hey, Matthew, this is Chris White from, we've had some emails back and forth, and I'm the one that has the deck plans on the Forge.
Oh, yes.
I was wondering if there's been any other work or talk or discussions about maybe coming up with like some rules, or like the task program, like we talked about in emails, like, you know, something that would encourage the community to, you know, jump onto the Forge, or even jump onto tasks.
In what sort of way?
Right now you can link, but you can't charge, right, to the existing content.
Right, with
And,
you,
and
yes.
there's also the IP concerns. Like, I made deck plans and they're all my own assets and all that stuff, but if it wasn't Scout Courier, no one would probably want it. So it's an IP infringement technically, right? So
yeah, this is the this does go back. The point you raised goes back about 20 odd years. In the best of all possible worlds, and growing up with RPGs, with the likes of AD&D and Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, if somebody wanted to produce their own material for a game, whether it was at home or sticking on a website or doing their own printed fanzine somewhere, the golden rule always used to be: do what you like, we don't care, just don't charge for it. And that was simple and that was easy. And then the OGL and D20 SRD came out, and all of a sudden everything got very official, and everybody needed permission before they wanted to do something. And I hate that. This is a creative hobby, and the idea that you can't create your own material and share it is very frustrating. I mean, one of the reasons we have the TAS program rather than just relying on the OGL that we had in first edition is that it allows us to open up absolutely everything in Traveller. We don't have to worry about SRDs. If it's printed in a Traveller book, go ahead and use it. Just use it under these terms. And again, we don't give a monkeys. We want you to be creative, and I want to be able to say the same thing to you. But with the virtual tabletops are a kind of new area at the moment. And in the same way, in my head, I'm kind of linking that kind of material to the likes of software suites and software tools for RPGs. Kind of like, you see them pop up, these apps that basically allow you to run the whole game from your phone, and that starts getting to a very problematic area when systems are being adapted into a different format without a straight link back to the original material, or possibly it's going into an area that we might think about going into in an official manner ourselves. Now, how that actually relates to your deck plans, it's very little, but there is a connection there, and it's just something we need to figure out. I want to be able to tell you to do what you like and share it with whom you like, but I can see some problems down the line in doing that. So I think I'm going to have to say, bear with me. I want to do the right thing by you, but I don't know what the implications of that are yet. And it's all the fault of D20. How's that?
That's
Honestly,
perfectly fine. I mean, I could add. I was thinking about adding something to the existing ones out there, but I mean, I really don't want to do anything until there's some guidelines at this point, right? And at least something that links to Traveler in that to that degree of IP, like using the deck plan or the layout, let's say.
So I do appreciate that, and I said what I want to do is just tell you to go ahead and do it, have fun. But I don't know I don't know if I'm digging a hole for myself by doing that yet.
Right, I totally understand. I've looked into it enough that I understand your frustration because
I hate to say it, it's a matter of you talking to a lawyer and
right.
discussing,
Yeah.
a
And
potential license that might be available for
I'm just
people.
thinking, yeah, along those lines, I'm thinking if for Matthew or Matt to put out make the task agreement and the forge the same would require some kind of lawyer, and it probably cost more than he'd make in a quite a long time, I would guess. Right.
Yeah.
So it's not it's at this point it's not a sound investment. It would really just be a
You guys could also just sit there and try a gentleman's agreement for a bit and trial that. But I am not a lawyer. What I say is not legal advice, and more importantly, I'm not your lawyer.
well, I'm not chomping at the bit to do anything really that's that type of Traveler. I'm working on some
Yeah.
starport stuff that's for all the rule sets, but I'm keeping it away from Travelers completely. So, but it's usable in the rule set. But I'll just stick to stick to that path for now until I hear something else, because I know if there's something Matthew can do, he'll do it.
Yeah, but by all means, keep in touch. We will get there at some point.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, we're winding down to our final minutes. Laren, do we got? I see one from Chumbly. Did we miss anything before I asked that one for him?
Nope. I think we're good. I just have an announcement after that, and then we're good.
Right, yeah. So the last one from Chumbly, in 2300 originally, the aliens, pentapods, and Kuifers were kind of just stand-up villains and pretty light on their cultures, systems, tech, etc., language, religion, etc. Could the 2300 AD Mongoose 2, could we have more extensive fleshing out of the aliens? And we actually may have the right person here to answer that too. CJ Dunn.
That's a Colin one.
Absolutely. There is a bit more detail on them in the core books now, and more information will come out as other products come out. I'm firmly of the belief that alien cultures aren't monolithic. You can't, not all pentapods, for example, are the same. And in fact, we've got it set up so that there's multiple factions within the pentapods now. So just like there are nations and alliances, there are factions in pentapods. Kafers might see something the same way. Ebers are certainly different. So, and the Sung have a planet that's multiple nations. And nations have their own cultures and they have their own belief systems and all of that sort of thing. And yes, that will come into play.
Very cool. Well, before we say farewell, Lerun?
Yeah, so all of you that are here in this, or most of you, next in a couple weeks or so, we're going to have another symposium. We're going to have Seth Skorkowski and Matt's going to come back, and we're going to probably dive more into the lore side of things, and obviously traveler related. So the format will be similar. It's just that you guys can interface with Seth, and we could talk about a little bit. I wanted to touch on writing a little bit. Matt, I don't know if I've talked this over with you, but and hopefully Mad Beard Man can make it if he can. But I would like to touch more a little bit on writing, and that would kind of segue into your tasks application that you were talking about earlier. So creating content for Traveler, which would be more like story based and shareable handouts and that kind of stuff. So if you guys are inclined to come back, that'll be next Friday. Fortunately, some of you will be just getting off work or whatnot, but we had to have it a little earlier in the afternoon. But it will be archived if you miss it. So
What time? That's noon Eastern, right?
Yes.
So noon Eastern, 5 p.m. GMT.
Yep.
Yep.
So if you're in the UK or Europe, it'll be great.
And what's the date?
I think it's the 19th to the 20th. I gotta look.
It's
It's Friday.
Is it the 21st, maybe?
21st. Yep.
It was my understanding there was to be no math.
Yeah. So
Cool.
we'll have Seth here, and we'll talk about a little bit about the lore, and talk a little bit about the publishing process in regards to writing, and how what your relationship with Seth is, and that good stuff. So
Great. Well, just going to close out then, Lauren. We're at our 2-hour mark. We still have maybe almost half a dozen classes still on the schedule here at the Fantasy Grounds Academy, just for Mongoose Traveler 2nd Edition. But we teach more than just one rule set here. But for the focus, we're trying to do almost 2 classes a week. So tomorrow there's a Referee 101 with Russ. This Monday I'm doing a Spacecraft Operations with Colin's brand new polished spacecraft iteration in Fantasy Grounds. So check out our events here in Discord. So let's see if you got plenty of room. We got the time. We're gonna be teaching this stuff. For Colin, Mad Beard Man, thank you very much. Matt from Mongoose Publishing, we really appreciate your time and you coming out and doing this stuff with us.
Oh, I really enjoy it. Thank you very much.
Yep, no worries at all. And thanks for you guys for doing this.
yeah,
And for
no problem.
everybody who's turned up as well.
Yeah, I might throw in a map class this month and just use sci-fi assets instead of fantasy, because it's the same difference.
Yeah.
Does that teach you how to do line of sight?
He sure does.
Cool. Let me know, because I need to do that for Shadows of Sindel.
Yep. So I'm gonna do some of that, and I'll just use the core rule set and just use some of Farad's content or something, just something to keep it copacetic and more in line with the theme.
Excellent. And might as well also let people know that Death Station is going to be free. Once it's finished, it will be free and given away freely with all of our love.
That is awesome. I know a lot of it's already done, so it's just a matter of porting it over and getting it approved.
Yeah.
Well, everyone watching on Twitch, thank you very much. This is the end of our stream. Thank you.
Bye-bye.